Isn't it funny how there's people that know nothing about motorcycles, but will tell you exactly what's going to happen to you if you decide to ride one? That's what we're going to talk about today. This is some of the biggest lies told about people that ride a motorcycle or riding a motorcycle in general. And I'm not only going to try to debunk this with some facts, but just my personal opinion and some things that I think are just straight up common sense. Now, whatever your opinion is, I'd love to hear that in the comments section below after the video. Just let me tell you where I'm coming from in my personal opinion on some of these things. Maybe I'm completely wrong, maybe not. We'll see. And if you have any ideas to further this series, because I know there's a lot we could talk about on this subject, I'd love to hear some of those ideas down below as well. Let's go ahead and dive right in. First one is, dude, you're gonna die. And so there is no argument that riding a motorcycle and riding in a passenger car or a truck is inherently more dangerous. You have no airbags, no seatbelt, no real protection except for what you're wearing to protect you from the semi that's right next to you or the road itself, whatever the case may be. You don't have a ton of protection. And so I'm going to show some stats here on the screen. This is just from 2020. But if we look at per 100,000 vehicles registered on a motorcycle, there was like 67 people to die per 100,000. Where in a light truck, it was almost 7 people. And then in a passenger car, it was almost 11 people per 100,000. That's pretty daunting. 100 million miles traveled, 31 people died on a bike compared to 0.74 in a light truck and 1.15 in a passenger car. What's interesting is if you look at the percentage of changes from 2011 to 2020, this is kind of interesting. So per 100,000 registered vehicles, there was a 22.3% increase on motorcycles, 12% decrease in light trucks, and a 14% increase in passenger cars. Per 100 million miles traveled, you had a 26.7% increase on motorcycles, a 1.4% increase in light trucks, and a 30% increase in passenger cars. Now, maybe that's because cars are smaller and more fuel efficient now, or whatever, the way they build them could be different. Who knows, right? But I'm just giving you what I see as far as these statistics. And again, I'll leave a link down to this below so you can read it for yourself. Now, what's interesting about this, according to these statistics, is almost a third of these deaths occurred when people were drinking and riding. This is a bad idea no matter what you're driving, no matter if it's a freaking armored truck, a freaking sports car, or a motorcycle. You're going to increase your chances a lot by staying away from alcohol if you decide to get behind the wheel or ride a motorcycle. Also, the time of day is really interesting too. So you'll notice that a lot of these accidents occur not so much in the morning in rush hour traffic, but more once it starts to get to noon, and then from 3 to 6 and 6 to 9, that's where you see a lot of these accidents and deaths actually occur. So you have, rush hour traffic in the afternoon, people not paying attention, people on their cell phones doing all this kind of stuff. But again, there's ways that you can prevent these things from happening. And one habit that I think we've all done at some point is we get to a stop sign or a stoplight and you throw the thing into neutral instantly without seeing if 1, 2, or even 3 cars behind you have at least stopped before you can give your hand a rest there. So I've been caught in video doing this. It's a terrible habit, and that's something you really can probably account for. A lot of that is just people getting run into. High visibility gear, high visibility LED lights, which is why I'm a big stickler on lights, man. I believe those help probably as much as high vis gear, white helmets, whatever you decide to do to make yourself more visible. That's the key. But again, I believe that the biggest thing to you keeping yourself safe on the road on a motorcycle is you. There are things that are just going to happen that are unavoidable. You understand that emergency braking and maneuvering and practicing swerving and stuff like that is involved with motorcycle riding, and it takes a little bit more skill, and these are perishable skills too, so it takes a little bit more practice to keep those skills up. You're going to have a much better chance of actually avoiding accidents altogether and predicting what other drivers are going to do. So instead of just going through and flying through an intersection because you have a green light, pump the brakes a little bit, man. Slow it down. Look both ways. Even if that green light turns green instantly. In a car, you might just go. On a bike, give it a second. Who cares about the person behind you? They can wait. But just give it a second. Give it one extra second, because that could be the difference between you getting hit and you not. Now, of course, this is anecdotal, but there's people that have rode for decades with no issue because they anticipate what other drivers are going to do. And honestly, if you treat it like the other drivers don't see you at all, do not expect them to be courteous and don't expect them to see you, I think you're going to find that you can keep yourself pretty safe on a motorcycle if you just pay attention to what other drivers are doing, and of course, to what you're doing as well. And what we're going to talk about, why even take the risk? Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. There are very few things in life that are enjoyable that don't involve some amount of risk. Whether you're riding a roller coaster, riding a motorcycle, you're into guns, you like to travel, so you get on an airplane, you take a cruise, you like to go scuba diving, you like to jump out of freaking airplanes. I don't know. Whatever it is you enjoy doing, from base jumping to just driving a car, there's risk in everything that we do in our lives. So if you're the type of person that is literally terrified every time you do something like that, then it's probably not for you. And if you recognize that and you say, hey man, it's just not worth it to me, I don't think the enjoyment is worth me risking it, fair enough. If you're somebody that's really accident prone and you can't really see things before they happen, or you don't like to pay attention or assume that people are going to pull out in front of you, maybe it's not for you. It's not for everybody for sure. But if you can accept some of that risk, it's going to come with it no matter what you do really, and you are smart and think ahead and everything we just talked about, then the risk is definitely worth the reward, because it is a very enjoyable thing that we do. My favorite things about motorcycle riding is riding with one, maybe two other people and getting a small pack together and just going somewhere. Just wherever that may be. I enjoy that. I like to just cruise. I'm not somebody that's going to burn rubber every single where I go and try to lift the tire off the ground and all that stuff. That's just not what I like. There's people that do like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, you got to make these decisions for yourself, but that mental release can be so worth it, and it's worth it to me. So that's why we take the chance. Hey, if you've enjoyed the video up to this point, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel, drop me a like on the video, and share it with your friends. Anybody that loves motorcycles, dude, we'd love to grow this community. And if you want to support what I do and continue to see videos just like this, consider supporting me on Patreon. Little as $1, you can help support this channel and become a part of this community. Big thanks to you guys. Now let's get into the next point. The next one we're going to talk about is, yeah, I'd probably ride a motorcycle, but not in this town. Man, dude, if I had just a single dollar for every time I've heard that one, it's pretty funny, dude. I mean, I live in a pretty busy area now. It hasn't always been like that. And the streets are essentially built for horse and buggy, okay? And so it kind of sucks in that regard. There's always stop and go traffic, especially in the morning and afternoons. But I imagine it's like that everywhere. You know what I mean? Where it might take us an extra 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes to get home. In other parts of the country, it may take you hours to get home. You know, so I guess it just depends on what kind of area you live in. But I imagine the tactics are all the same. You have irresponsible drivers. You have people on their cell phones. You have people not paying attention. You have people that are going to cut you off. You have people that are going to make a left-hand turn out in front of you in an intersection. All the variables and risks are inherently the same. There may be more of them depending on where you live, but that doesn't mean they can't be avoided. Would it be nice if every single state allowed us to lane split and all that? Absolutely. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Some people decide to go against that, and hey, that's none of my business. But what I am saying is that no matter where you live, you can make this an enjoyable experience maybe you just decide you want to ride on the weekends. Well, in that case, you're going to want to make sure you dedicate some practice time if you're just going to do that, because you only have a couple of days where you're really riding and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't matter if you've done it for 40 years or 1 month. Practice, practice is so important in this skill that we are trying to build in order to be safe. So no matter what town you live in, dude, I imagine and I believe that you can ride a motorcycle safely if you just follow those same things we've already talked about. And the last one is there's two types of bikers, ones that have gone down and ones that are gonna go down. Out of those 5,579 deaths, there was like 83 or 82,000 injuries in 2020 on a motorcycle. And that's out of like 8.3 million motorcycles registered. So the idea that every single rider, no matter who they are, at some point is going to go down. Now, I'm not talking about dropping your bike. I would I would venture to say at some point everybody's going to drop their bike at least one. I'm talking about going down in a corner, like literally going down on the motorcycle. But again, I don't really subscribe to that, man. I think that practicing those skills and again doing some of the same things we've talked about will help you as a rider so you don't have to layer down, so you can keep your bike upright in a sticky situation. I don't subscribe to this either. I think it's just a big lie, and I think it's told by a lot of people that have went down and are assuming because they've went down that you're gonna go down. I think that's really what that amounts to. But these are just my opinions, dude. I'd love to hear what yours are down in the comments below. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold the rubber side down.